Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan Casper here with you, and we're going to talk some Wisconsin sports youngsters on this podcast. Jordan Love, Jackson Chourio, okay? Jackson Chourio sounds like he's going to make the opening day roster. Jordan Love entering his second year as the starting quarterback for the Packers. I think these two guys, these two players, are under a lot of pressure to succeed, to play well, different types of pressure. But I want to talk about these two and the different types of pressure they're under. And I guess if you had to pick, who do you think is under the most pressure? Of these two Wisconsin sports youngsters, okay, of these two youngsters, who do you think is under the most pressure for the rest of their career? Jordan Love or Jackson Chourio? Jordan Love or Jackson Chourio? We got to see Jordan Love for a year. He's going to get a big deal this year. We know that. He's going to get a nice contract extension. Jackson Chourio already has a nice contract, and we haven't seen him play at a major league level. So, who do you think is under the most pressure right now for the rest of their careers? Or I guess maybe the beginning of their careers too, if that kind of makes sense a little bit. But again, you can vote it up. I shared it up on both our Twitter pages at DANKSPER and at sportstalk1051.com. Keep it posted on how the votes kind of funnel through here. But if you don't have Twitter, you can always hit me up with a text if that's easier for you. Okay, let's get things rolling here this morning on the leadoff. News last night that the Brewers, this was from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel last night, that Jackson Chourio will make the opening day roster. And I know for some fans it was like, well, duh. But it wasn't a for sure thing, or at least the Brewers did a good job of saying it wasn't a for sure thing. But he will be the youngest Milwaukee Brewers player since Robin Yount to make his Major League debut. He is the second-ranked prospect in all of baseball behind Holiday over there with Baltimore. Recently just turned 20 years old. And if he starts in center field on the 28th, he will be the third youngest player to start at the position on opening day since 1900. So, according to the Journal-Sentinel, Jackson Chourio will make the opening day roster. And this comes not too long after there was, some talk and some articles, you even go to Brewers.com and talking about, Jackson's defense. He's struggling a little bit defensively. Pat Murphy kind of downplaying a little bit, saying, paraphrasing, but saying, guys thinking a little too much, putting a lot of pressure on himself to make that opening day roster. Now, when you look at this could be a move like, okay, if Jackson knows this already, hey, I've made the opening day roster, maybe the kid can relax a little bit and get back to just playing ball, just get back to playing baseball and not have to press too much, not have to think too much. That's the ideal outcome, right? It's like, okay, that's a weight lifted off his shoulders, off this kid's shoulders, and maybe he could start to get back to focusing on just playing good baseball, playing good ball. We'll see how it all plays out. But there's no doubt about it. Jackson Chourio is under a lot of pressure. Internally, on himself, from the fans. This kid's got a lot on his shoulders. We have yet to see him at a major league level. We have barely seen him at the AAA level. Handful of innings. You've got rankings out there. He's the second best prospect in the entire major leagues. We've been hearing about this kid. We've been hearing about Jackson Chourio for, it seems like, almost 5 years now. It's only been a couple. But it just seems like we've been hearing about him and how good he is for a long time. Heck, you've got beat reporters, beat writers for the Brewers. If you don't have Twitter, I think it's Kurt Hogg, or was it Kurt Hogg? But, last year he would tweet out a video every time Jackson Chourio hit a home run in the minor leagues. So you had media, kind of building up the aura of Jackson Chourio. The kid's under a lot of pressure from a lot of different ways, coming from different sources, different areas, right? Pat Murphy, kind of even saying too that Chourio has done some nice things. You can see it in him. You can see the talent. There are flashes at the plate that he's been very, very good. Other stuff, he has a long way to go. We didn't sign him for just this year. We signed him for the future. I think he'll grow leaps and bounds. He will grow more accustomed to what it takes. So, and he also went on to say he's a young kid. I'm just going to keep believing in him. He's probably pressing. He also did some really good things today. Upside's fantastic. He did go on to say he's played subpar defense, but I think a lot of that is the extra weight of expectations he's carrying around. I think that will improve for sure. And there's no, it's going to be interesting. I think the big unknown when it comes to Jackson Chourio is that how does he handle these expectations? How does he handle this weight, this I guess the weight of the franchise under him is, I guess, what I'm trying to say here is how does he handle that pressure? How does he handle I've got a big contract already. I haven't made a major league level. I'm kind of viewed as maybe the new face of the franchise, a franchise that we know doesn't spend a whole lot of money all the time. They aren't going to be a top 5 paid, franchise out there. So I kind of have to maybe be the guy that helps carry us to a World Series. I mean, we could come up with a bunch of different reasons, and that's where I look at it. If I were to make a case for both sides here, and right now the vote getter leader on our texting line is Jackson Chourio, who's under the most pressure. But if I had to make a case for each person, we'll start with Jackson. Why I think he's the most, or the player, the Wisconsin sports youngster who's under the most pressure right now is, one, you already get a big deal without playing a major league inning. You already get that. That instantly puts pressure on you. We've been hearing for the last couple of years of how good you are. Even though we haven't seen you at a major league level, we have constantly been told you are good. Not just good, really, really good. Like fantastic good. That puts pressure on you. But I also think it does add a little pressure of being on a team, a small market team like the Brewers, because you are going to have to be the guy or one of a couple of guys. You're not on a Dodgers team where you've got a lineup of a Freddie Freeman and an Ohtani and a Mookie Betts, where you've got a bunch of dudes all across the lineup. All across. Where if this guy has an off day or maybe he's in a little bit of a slump, team like that's got other guys who could step up and fill in for that hole. So it puts a little bit more pressure on a youngster who just turned 20 years old to be like, okay, if this team, for any chance for this team to go to the World Series and to win the World Series, a lot of that's going to be on my shoulders to carry this team. I may have a couple other all-stars with me. We may have a really, really good year where we can ride that momentum, but we're never going to have a roster that's going to be top to bottom all-star talent. It's just not going to happen. That's not going to happen in Milwaukee. So for this team to win a championship, to be a World Series contender, to win a World Series, a lot's going to be on the shoulders of this kid, of Jackson Chourio. And it's a big unknown yet of what are we going to expect from him? What kind of player is he going to be? We've been told he's going to be really good. It's already setting that bar high. But what if he turns out it's not? We don't know yet. Jordan Love, I mean, when you're the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, you're going to instantly be under immense pressure. That's the easy one. Double it up, you're replacing a future Hall of Famer. All right, got another notch on there. What else makes Jordan Love under a lot of pressure is he answered questions last year. Last year we go into the season, we didn't know what the hell to expect from Jordan Love. Some people were adamant that he wasn't going to be the guy. Some people were willing to be patient. Some thought he would be the guy. It was all over the place. And we based it off of draft stuff, what you saw in the preseason, what you saw from reporters tweeting, writing about. We got a little bit of a glimpse from him, and we made guesses. We had our thoughts about him. But I think it's fair to say that he surpassed a lot of people's, if not everybody's, expectations last year. Started off a little slow, but the dude played incredibly well in the second half into the postseason, got his team a few plays away from potentially going to the NFC Championship. So he answered a ton of questions, played really well. You add that onto the pressure thing, and now we know he's going to get a contract. He's going to get a contract extension. That adds more to that pressure too. The easy answer is that both of these dudes are going to be under immense pressure from their fan bases, from their teams. The answer is both. Now, is there one that is maybe a little bit more, under a little bit more pressure than the other? I think they're both in two unique, different situations. Because we got to see Jordan Love a little bit. We got to see him for a year. And he looked good. And that just adds on to a little bit more pressure for him. To be like, okay, all right, dude, you looked good. Can you repeat that? Is that going to be your style? Are you going to play like that throughout the rest of your career? Or was this just a one-year deal? Did you just catch everybody off guard and took advantage of it? Or is this a sign of things to come and maybe even getting a little bit better? There was already a lot of pressure under Jordan Love to come in and replace Aaron Rodgers, just like there was a lot of pressure for Aaron Rodgers to come in and replace Brett Favre. But now that Love has had success in his first year as a starter, is going to get a nice contract. And I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of people out there, maybe not the majority, but there will be a lot of people out there that will complain about Jordan Love's contract, that he's getting too much money after just 1 year. It's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. If it's going to be in May or June or whenever that deal is going to be agreed to. But there is going to be that added pressure to it as well. So they're two different types of scenarios. They're both young, and they're both, well, Jackson's should be getting there based off the expectations. But, in the next few years, both are probably going to be the faces of the franchise. And the pressures to bring a world championship to each of their franchises is just going to grow every single year that they don't. Or, if they do bring one, we want more. It's like Jordan Love wins one. There's going to be that pressure of, okay, now can he do something the other two quarterbacks for Green Bay never was able to do? Win two. So if we're lucky enough as Packers fans to see Jordan Love win a Super Bowl, the next day, or maybe the next week after all the celebrations are over with and the parades around Green Bay are done and cleaned up, the next thing that's going to be talked about. All right, you got one. But can he do something that Favre and Rodgers couldn't do? Win another. Can he win 2? 2 seems to be that nice round number for quarterbacks in Super Bowls because you can use the one word, multiple. He's won multiple Super Bowls. It's almost like now it's turned into like, oh, he only won 1? Guy only got 1 ring under his belt? First of all, thanks Tom Brady for that, for just like annihilating all the Super Bowl records and such. But nonetheless, it's like, even when Peyton won his second one, the Broncos didn't win because of Peyton Manning. I mean, that defense was really good. Brock Osweiler, there was a debate, should Brock Osweiler be finishing off the year? Should it be Peyton? But we can say Peyton Manning has won multiple Super Bowls. So there's going to be, if Love is able to get 1 Super Bowl, 1 championship, a few days later, that talk's going to be, can he get 2? Because then you can use the word multiple. Well, he's won multiple Super Bowls. Because the one quarterback in Green Bay history, there's one quarterback in Green Bay history who's won multiple championships, Bart Starr. And that's where, for a lot of Packers fans, he's still regarded as the best quarterback in franchise history because he's won multiple championships. And I think Jackson's under a little bit of a different type of pressure because you're on a smaller market team, a team that's not going to spend a whole lot. So when they do invest a lot of money in a player, you've got the weight of the entire franchise on your shoulders because there's a good chance that, hey, you're not going to get much more help. It's just not going to happen because we can't afford anybody else. We've talked about, is this going to be the way that the Brewers now conduct business, where they give big contracts to younger players instead of, like the contract they gave to Christian Yelich? You got a lot of Brewers fans not liking that deal anymore. Loved it at the time. Don't like it now. Same with the Ryan Braun contract. And you kind of wonder, is this going to be the new way of things for the Brewers to try to combat that? Maybe not invest a ton of money in a guy who's close to 30, a long-term ton of money, because, what if they hit that wall? You're kind of buying based off potential here. But when you're on a smaller market team that's not going to spend a whole lot of money, and you are going to be the guy you're the guy that's got a big contract without us ever seeing you on the field, hell yeah, there's pressure in that. Fans have been told for years that this guy is going to be a stud. Hell yeah, there's a pressure involved in that. And then when you're on a small market team, you can't hide the guy in the lineup. You can't hide him somewhere. Because you know what's going to happen in baseball season. If Jackson Chourio is struggling, what's going to be a main topic amongst Wisconsin sports shows all across? It happened with Yelich. It happened with Braun. Guys with big contracts that not playing up to that level of that contract. And when you are going to be the face of the franchise for a franchise that may not spend a whole lot more outside of you, definitely a ton of pressure. So there's pressure on both of these guys. Maybe a little bit of a different style, maybe a little bit of a different type of pressure. But who was it that said pressure is a privilege? I think it was Jordan Love who said that. And I think he might have been quoting somebody else on that. But I love that quote. Pressure is a privilege. I think if you are a top athlete or even at the top of your profession, you welcome pressure. That means a lot of people are putting a lot of faith in you. People are investing in you. People believe in you. They want to believe in you. They're willing to believe in you. And people are looking at you to be a leader, to live up to high expectations. So I love that quote, that pressure is a privilege. And as a fan of these teams, I'm glad we're talking about a couple of youngsters here who have a lot of pressure, because that means we've got some expectations too. If we weren't putting pressure on guys like Jackson Chourio or Jordan Love, we'd be talking about probably, Hopefully we can build up some, depth, and maybe eventually in a couple years we're talking about winning some games finally, and maybe making it to the postseason and that sort of. No, it's when we've got young talent like this, or talent just in general, we put pressure on it because we expect great things. We're not talking about Green Bay this year going into another rebuild, or oh dang it, now they got to try to find another quarterback. No, we're talking okay, this is a team that could compete for a Super Bowl. Brewers, we're talking about, okay, I like this young team. Maybe they can make some noise, get in the postseason. Anything can happen in the baseball postseason. So when we put pressure on these guys, that means we've got something that we're holding on to, that we got maybe a little bit of hope, a little bit of confidence. We feel a little bit good that, our team has a shot. Our players, they got a shot to do something. They've got a shot to do something. Could be worse. Could be in a situation where we don't have anybody to hang our hat on, or we don't have, that future face of the franchise, and we're just all right, here we go, another season. We'll see what happens. Pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. All right, now that is going to do it for this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and a 5-star rating. If you could, please, just take a few seconds to click 5 stars on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you got a couple more seconds, if you could, leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Man, that would help us out a lot. And a big thanks for all of you who have already done that. But until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.